There is a reason the original prayer of Jesus was never fully explained to the world. For centuries, humanity repeated translated words without realizing entire layers of spiritual power had vanished inside the translation itself. What if the prayer you learned was only the surface of something infinitely deeper? What if every word spoken by Jesus carried frequencies designed to awaken the human soul from fear, confusion, and inner emptiness? The ancient Aramaic language was never just communication. It was vibration. It was breath. It was spiritual resonance moving directly through the body and spirit at the same time. And hidden inside the original Lord's Prayer are codes connected to healing, restoration, clarity, and divine authority. Most people have spoken these words their entire lives without ever hearing what Jesus truly meant. But tonight, that changes, because we are about to enter the ancient sound current behind the prayer itself. And once you hear these sacred words in their original form, you may never experience prayer the same way again. Abwoon. The first word, some people will feel peace during this session. Others may feel emotion rising unexpectedly. That is because certain frequencies do not speak to the mind first. They speak directly to the soul. The first word of the prayer was never simply Father. In Aramaic, Jesus began with the sacred word Abwoon. And this single word carries dimensions of meaning that modern translations struggle to contain. When most people hear the word Father, they imagine authority, distance, or judgment. But Abwoon was something entirely different. It described the divine source as both creator and nurturer. At the same time, a living presence surrounding existence itself. Ancient Aramaic scholars explain that the sound of Ab relates to the vibration of origin and creation, while Woon carries the sensation of movement, womb, breath, and flowing life. This means Jesus was not praying to a distant ruler in the sky. He was speaking directly into the living field of divine presence that exists both around and within humanity. That changes everything about the prayer immediately, because fear cannot survive inside true connection. Many people today struggle with anxiety, emptiness, and spiritual exhaustion because they unknowingly believe they are separated from the divine. But the original Aramaic prayer begins by dissolving separation itself. Diboshmaya, who art in heaven. The next words, Dibush, were later translated as who art in heaven. Yet the Aramaic understanding was never limited to a physical heaven somewhere above the clouds. The word carried the meaning of the cosmic field, the universal dimension, the sacred vibration behind all existence. This means the opening line was less about location and more about spiritual awareness. It was reminding the listener that divine presence flows through every layer of reality inside the breath, inside silence, inside consciousness itself. This is why the original prayer was never merely religious repetition. It was alignment, a recalibration of the human spirit back into harmony with divine order. And once you begin hearing the prayer this way, you understand why the words of Jesus still carry power across centuries, because these sounds were never dead language. They were living frequencies designed to awaken the soul from spiritual sleep. Understanding these frequencies is the first step, but mastering their vibration in your daily life is where the true miracle happens. I receive many messages asking for the correct pronunciation and sequence of these sounds, so I have prepared sacred guides to help you bridge this gap. You can find the link pinned in the comments to begin your practical journey today. NET HQ ADASH SH MAK Hallowed be thy name. As the prayer continues, Jesus speaks the words Nethkadash Makeh. Most translations reduce this to hallowed be thy name, but the deeper Aramaic meaning extends far beyond religious language. The word Shmakh did not simply refer to a literal name. In ancient Semitic understanding, a name represented essence, vibration, identity, and spiritual frequency. To speak the divine name was to align with divine nature itself. This changes the entire emotional energy of the prayer. Because Jesus was not asking people to merely praise God verbally, he was guiding them into resonance with sacred consciousness, and that resonance becomes especially important in a world filled with fear, distraction, and emotional noise. Today, millions of people wake up overwhelmed before the day even begins. Their minds are crowded with stress, comparison, uncertainty, and hidden exhaustion. But the original prayer carried a completely different frequency. It slowed the nervous system. It redirected awareness inward. It restored spiritual coherence. Te, ite, iemaileka, uteache, aka, ache thy kingdom come. Then comes the phrase, Tati, Malkathak. Modern translations call this thy kingdom come. Yet the Aramaic word, Malkathak, was never simply about a kingdom arriving externally in the future. It referred to the divine reality awakening within human consciousness itself, a sacred order returning to the human spirit. This means the prayer was not passive waiting, it was activation. Jesus was teaching that divine authority begins internally before it transforms the outer world. That truth becomes life-changing when understood correctly, because many people spend their lives searching outside themselves for peace, purpose, or certainty. Yet the Aramaic prayer continuously directs awareness back toward inner alignment. The kingdom was never merely a place. It was a condition of awakened consciousness. And perhaps this explains why the original words feel so emotionally powerful even today. Because deep inside, the soul recognizes frequencies it has not heard in generations. Something ancient begins to awaken. Something buried beneath fear and conditioning starts remembering itself again. And maybe that is exactly what frightened institutions throughout history. Not the prayer itself, but the possibility that humanity might rediscover the divine authority hidden within their own spirit. If this teaching is stirring a deep resonance in your heart, it is a sign that your soul is ready to return to its original blueprint. To support you in this transition, my guides explain the layers of meaning behind the first sacred words, offering you a path to clear the interference of the world. The link to access these tools is waiting for you in the pinned comment. Havalan, Lakma Disunkanan, Yomana, Daily Bread. The prayer then reaches one of its most powerful and emotionally transformative lines. Hovlan Lakma, Disunkanan Yaumana. Most translations simplify this into give us this day our daily bread. But the Aramaic depth reveals something much greater. The word laxma certainly included physical bread, but it also referred to spiritual nourishment, wisdom, inner substance, and the energy required for the soul to remain alive and connected. This changes the meaning completely, because Jesus was not only speaking about survival, he was speaking about restoration. Today, countless people feel spiritually starved, even while surrounded by material abundance. They consume endless information, yet still feel empty inside. They chase achievement, yet remain emotionally exhausted. And this may explain why the ancient prayer continues resonating across generations. It addresses a hunger deeper than the body. The prayer recognizes the invisible famine happening within the human spirit washboklen. Then comes the line washboklen kalbain, ekanadaf kanan, spoken lekayabain, traditionally translated as, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." But the Aramaic word kalbain carried meanings beyond simple sin. It included burdens, energetic debts, emotional wounds, inner distortions, and unresolved pain. This means forgiveness was not merely moral behavior. It was liberation. Jesus understood that unhealed resentment traps human consciousness in cycles of suffering, and modern science now confirms what ancient spiritual teachings already knew. The body carries emotional memory, pain stored for years slowly, shapes thought, perception, and even physical health. The original prayer addressed this directly. It invited the soul into release, into freedom from the invisible chains carried silently through life. Perhaps this is why some people feel overwhelming emotion when hearing the Aramaic words spoken aloud, because the frequencies seem to bypass intellectual defenses completely. Something ancient inside begins softening. Walls built over decades begin cracking open, and for a moment, the soul remembers what peace actually feels like, not performance, not survival, but true inner restoration. Video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Wilatahalang lensiuna. Deliver us. As the prayer approaches its final movement, Jesus speaks the words, Welatalen, Lanisiuna elapatsan min bisha, for centuries known as, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Yet the deeper Aramaic meanings reveal an entirely different emotional landscape. The word nesiona was not simply temptation in the modern sense. It referred to inner confusion, spiritual testing, illusion, and moments where human consciousness becomes disconnected from truth. This changes the prayer profoundly, because Jesus was not describing a God who tricks humanity into failure. He was describing the fragile condition of the human mind when separated from divine awareness. And perhaps nothing describes the modern world more accurately than this condition itself. People today are surrounded by endless distraction. Fear floods every screen. Comparison consumes identity. Anxiety silently shapes entire generations. The ancient Aramaic prayer sounds almost prophetic when heard through this lens, because it recognizes that the greatest danger is not external darkness alone, it is inner fragmentation. Padzan min bisha restoration, then comes the powerful phrase, Padzan min bisha, traditionally translated as, deliver us from evil. But the Aramaic word, bisha, also implied imbalance, chaos, distortion, and destructive consciousness. This means the prayer was not simply asking for rescue from external evil forces. It was asking for restoration from everything that fractures the soul internally, from fear, from hatred, from despair, from spiritual blindness. This is why the original prayer feels less like religious obligation and more like energetic healing. Every line gradually restores coherence to the human spirit. Every phrase reorients consciousness toward wholeness. And maybe this is why the teachings of Jesus survived centuries of translation, conflict, and institutional control. Because truth carries resonance beyond language itself. Even fragmented versions still preserved echoes of the original frequency. But when the Aramaic words are spoken fully, something extraordinary happens. The prayer stops being recitation. It becomes experience. It becomes remembrance. And for many people, it becomes the first moment they truly understand that the kingdom Jesus described was never far away. It was always waiting beneath the noise of the world, hidden quietly inside the human soul. The deeper humanity looks into the original Aramaic words of Jesus, the clearer one truth becomes. The Lord's Prayer was never meant to be empty repetition. It was a map for inner transformation, a sequence of living frequencies designed to reconnect the human spirit with divine awareness. Every word carried movement, every phrase carried healing, and every sound invited the soul back into alignment with the source of life itself. What began with Abwoon opened the doorway to divine connection beyond fear and separation. Then the prayer guided consciousness into sacred resonance through Shmak and awakened the inner kingdom through Malkothak. It restored Papoose through alignment with divine will. It nourished the soul through Lakma. It released emotional burdens through forgiveness. And finally, it protected consciousness from fragmentation, confusion, and inner chaos through the closing words of restoration. This is why so many people feel something stirring inside them while hearing the prayer in Aramaic. Not because the words are magical by themselves, but because truth has resonance, and the soul recognizes frequencies connected to its original design. Perhaps the greatest secret hidden within the teachings of Jesus was never about control or religion. Perhaps it was always about awakening, about remembering the divine presence already moving within human consciousness. And maybe that remembrance is exactly what the modern world fears losing the most. Because a person connected to inner truth becomes difficult to manipulate. They stop living entirely from fear. They begin hearing the deeper rhythm beneath life itself. And once that awakening begins, the soul can never fully return to spiritual sleep again. Visit Divine Light Academy at the link below to access my complete guides and start your journey into the living language of the Masters. But before you go, I want to hear from you. What did you feel during this session? Comment the word Abwoon below if you felt a shift in your energy today. We read every response, and your testimony strengthens this entire community of light. Right now, before you close this video, come to the comments and tell us, what did you feel? What shifted? We read every single response. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours.